The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, your premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. The spotlight this week goes to Andy Niekamp, also known as Captain Blue. I am sure many of you have heard of Captain Blue from being the first solo person to Thru-Hike the Buckeye Trail back in 2011, and then his book to follow titled Captain Blue on the Blue Blazes. But Captain Blue did not stop there. Here's just a little taste of what he's done from his company bio over at Outdoor Adventure Connection. Andy Niekamp, the Chief Adventure Officer of Outdoor Adventure Connection, has been leading adventure trips for decades and has more than 30 years of backcountry experience. He currently hikes more than 1,000 miles a year. A native of Kettering, Ohio, Andy got his start as a Boy Scout and attained the ranking of Eagle Scout. After completing a successful career in information technology in 2010, Andy decided to pursue his passion and introduce others to backpacking and hiking. Today, Andy is the founder and organizer of Dayton Hikers, the largest outdoor recreation club in Dayton, Ohio, with 7,000 plus members. Andy Niekamp has hiked in more than 30 different states, from East Coast to West Coast, and from Minnesota to Florida. That bio is just a small taste of what Andy has done as a hiker. He also refers to himself as a chronic section hiker. He's also completed the Appalachian Trail 5 times as a section hiker. That's over 11,000 miles just on the Appalachian Trail. So today we are going to chat trail, the importance of volunteering and giving back, and about Andy's company, Outdoor Adventure Connection. Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode, and if this is your first time listening to the podcast, thanks for joining in on all the fun. And now on to Andy Niekamp, also known as Captain Blue. All right, you guys, please welcome to the podcast. Big round of applause for fellow Buckeye, fellow Daytonian, Andy Niekamp, or known on the trail as Captain Blue. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jester, for having me on.
I appreciate it. Hey, listen, when I first started this podcast back in 2019, my dad, who is a huge fan of yours, I know he went and saw one of your talks. He's like, hey, you got to have that Captain Blue on your show. So here we are 2.5 years later. Captain Blue is finally on the show. So Dad, you're welcome.
Awesome.
So anyway, Andy, here I am, or Captain Blue. I was looking at everything you've done as a hiker. You've hiked over 30,000 miles from the East Coast to the West Coast, all over the place. And I was reviewing what you've done. So I want to start with maybe going back to 2011, because I want to interweave into your hiking resume how you started section hiking the Appalachian Trail, but I want to give the listeners some context here. So for your hiking, you completed the Buckeye Trail in 2011, the Sheltowee Trace in 2012, the Vermont Long Trail in 2012, 2013 Colorado Trail, Ohio to Erie Trail, 2015 Arkansas's Ozark Highlands Trail, and Minnesota's Superior Hiking Trail, 2017 your book released, Captain Blue on the Blue Blazes, which is all about your Thru-Hike of the Buckeye Trail. You've done the Jabiru Trail. You've done the Florida Trail. I also read somewhere you have hiked the Foothills Trail. You've completed that trail like 7 times. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So and in 2021, you finished the Appalachian Trail for the 5th time as a section hiker. So as I'm reading all the hiking you've done, I'm like, how do I start this interview with Andy? And the only thing I can think of is, how did all this start, Andy?
Well, that's a question I get asked a lot. And, I have to credit the Boy Scouts of America, because when I grew up, I was in the Boy Scouts, and that's when I first put a backpack on and spent a night in the woods hiking in. And like most Boy Scouts, I didn't quite enjoy it because my memories are being really cold and long forced marches and improper gear. So fast forward to after the days of college, I met some friends that said, hey, let's go backpacking at this place called Red River Gorge in Kentucky in the Daniel Boone National Forest. So I'm like, sure, grabbed the old Boy Scout gear and went. And after a few years of that, they quit backpacking, and I liked what I was doing. And I heard about this trail called the Appalachian Trail. And this was in the late 1980s. And days before the internet, days before cell phones. And when you learned about trails, it was word of mouth. And I rode away to the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and bought the guidebook for the Great Smoky Mountains and decided to take a plunge and do a solo 35-mile hike in the Great Smoky Mountains. And that was the start of my AT hiking.
Well, how did that first hike go? I love it. I love to hear people's first hikes because they're either wonderful or they're a disaster, or never somewhere in the middle. So I'm interested.
Yeah.
How'd that first hike go?
It's one of those hikes that was kind of a disaster that after you got home turned wonderful because, like I said earlier, it was pre-internet days. You couldn't Google Appalachian Trail. You didn't know what gear to bring. You just brought what you thought was right. I had canned goods. I had heavy leather boots. I don't even remember what my pack weighed, but it had to be 60 pounds or more. Had, metal cook kits from Boy Scout days, and it tore me up. It was a lot of work, and 35 miles over 5 days doesn't sound a whole lot like right now, but at the time it was a big deal. And once I got home, I realized I could do better. I had met people along the way. I saw what they were wearing. I saw what they were carrying. I saw what different gear was, and I refined my system and went back out the next summer and did close to 200 miles on the Appalachian Trail, went back and did all the Smokies on the AT, and then did all of the Appalachian Trail in Shenandoah National Park, and did a much better job of it. Yeah.
When was your first completion?
So I finished in 1998 for the first time. And, I'm a chronic section hiker. All of my hikes on the Appalachian Trail have been in sections. I've not through-hiked the trail. And when I hiked the Smoky Mountains and Shenandoah, I had no vision whatsoever of doing the entire trail. None. It just was too long. I had a full-time job. I was in IT, didn't get a lot of vacation, and it just didn't seem like anything I could do. But a friend of mine encouraged me to go hiking on the AT with him in Georgia in 1994, and that was another section that we went from Springer Mountain to Fontana Dam, the edge of the Smokies, and all of a sudden I had pieced 2 of my sections together, and I got the bug. And I took vacation time. I took unpaid time off from my corporate gig to go hiking, and lo and behold, in 1998, I was able to finish it the first time.
So that was a 10-year first round section hike.
It was,
so
yes.
What prompted you to go on number 2? Was it like, okay, I need to go back. I've perfected things now. I want to go back and make a round 2, or what led to round 2?
Well, That's a good question. So number one, I still don't feel like I've perfected things. Even hiking it 5 times, times change, gear changes, techniques change. And so I'm always adjusting my system. But when you haven't hiked the Appalachian Trail the first time and you're trying to do it, it's a long trail. And really your focus is kind of getting on the mile, get the miles done. And especially with me, because I had limited vacation days and it was like, okay, I want to get to this point in these 14 days that I have off. And when I went back the second time, I didn't have that pressure of having to do the miles. I went back with the intention of just having a good time and blue blazing where I wanted to and seeing sights on the side trails. And who cares if I stuck to the white blazes or not? Well, after I got there, I realized that the Appalachian Trail was so much better the second time. You got to see sights. You didn't have the pressure of the miles. I did stick to the white blazes. And I kind of developed like, hey, this was going through Georgia the second time is so much easier than going through Georgia the first time. And when you hike, the AT, the first time you get all these place names, like where was that? Where was Kelly Knob Shelter? Where was Chestnut? And where, you hike it a second time, all these things fall in place in your memory. Like, oh, okay, this is where this is. And you learn the trail so much more. And when I started that second time, I had no aspirations to finish it a second time. It just happened. I just found myself going back.
Okay, well, then there's a third time.
Then there were
a fourth time and a fifth time.
And a fifth time, yeah. I completed it a second time in 2004, a third time in 2010, a fourth time in 2016, and then just last August I finished it a fifth time. And I tell people that long distance hiking is kind of my personal fountain of youth. And it's a way to escape the pressures of society, the stresses, and immerse yourself in the woods and live a healthy lifestyle. And lots of exercise, and it's just good for the body. And a lot of people are focused on the outer journey when they go on a trip, because everybody says, well, what about the PCT or CDT? Have you heard of those? And I'm like, it's the inner journey while I'm there. It's the transformation that happens inside me that gives me the kicks. I don't need those Instagram, Facebook perfect photos. I'm hiking for what happens inside me, not for what happens outside. And that's why I found myself drawn back to the Appalachian Trail time after time.
So what was it? Compare the fifth time to the first time. When you finished the first time compared to the finishing your last time here in 2021.
Well,
that growth on the inside, I guess.
Yeah, the growth on the inside. But when you start hiking long trails and you go through adversity, number one, you have to be very, very comfortable with yourself on a long distance hike. If you got any issues that you got to process, you're going to process them there on the trail, and you're going to work through them one way or the other. Okay, it just happens. You put yourself through a physically demanding situation. You got weather beating down on you all different ways, whether it's rain, wind, sun, or whatever. You just have to be very comfortable with yourself. And that's the fifth time I was extremely comfortable with myself. I didn't have the anxiety, when you're staring down the barrel of a 500 or 600 mile trail, there can be some anxiety. Now, when I do that, I'm like, I can't wait. I know what's ahead of me. But with that said, I don't see myself doing a sixth.
I was going to ask you, before we move over to your Buckeye Trail Thru-Hike, there's no sixth, you think?
Well, I'll be
never
back
say never.
Never say never, and I've said that before, and I'll be back on the AT. I know I'll be back on the AT this summer, but I just don't see it in the cards doing it a sixth time.
So of all the trails you've done, so you're interweaving all these different trails, and you're completing different aspects. And here's the Buckeye Trail, the home state trail. And you completed that. You were the first solo through hiker of that trail in 2011. Was the Buckeye Trail complete when you did that?
Yeah, so the Buckeye Trail was complete, and more specifically, I was the first person to solo through hike it at its current length of 1,444 miles. The Buckeye Trail has grown in length over 60 years from 600 miles to 1,444. So And it still kind of continues to grow today. So, and I didn't even know that at the time when I did it. But I had finished the AT for a third time. Okay. My corporate gig came to an end during the Great Recession. I decided,
Congratulations.
yes, which it was a good thing looking back. And it kind of let me off the leash a little bit to do a lot more hiking. And I said, well, I've hiked the AT 3 times. What about this trail in my own backyard, the Buckeye Trail? And so it runs right through Dayton, Ohio, where I'm from, and I had been on it many times. If you live in Ohio, you've hiked on it or driven over it or come across it many, many times. And I just did not make any grand announcement about a Thru-Hike. I had my mother drop me off in downtown Dayton, which was only 4 miles from my house. And I told my mother, I cleared my calendar for 3 months. And I said, Mom, I could be home in 3 days. I could be home in 3 weeks, or I could be home in 3 months. I'm coming home when it's no longer fun. And lo and behold, 88 days later, I circled back around on the Buckeye Trail to Ohio. I had really low expectations of the Buckeye Trail. I mean, how much fun can hiking in Ohio be when there's all these other places? I mean, I was born in Ohio. I was raised in Ohio. I went to school in Ohio. I worked my career in Ohio. Let's face it, Ohio's boring, Most
That's why I'm down here in North Carolina, Andy.
Yeah, I know. But most people see Ohio from our interstate system out the window of their car, and they think that's what Ohio is. Ohio is very beautiful, off the beaten path. And if you take the time to walk through Ohio, and I would imagine any of your listeners, if they would walk through their own state, they would discover things that they didn't know was there. And the people of Ohio made my journey special. And that's a lot of focus in my book, is the people that I met and the history that I encountered. And I tell people, and I say this in the programs that I give, you can't hike 1,444 miles in Ohio and not have some adventure, And to me, a hike on the Buckeye Trail is what I call the 4 Ps. It's the people, it's the places, it's the past, and it's the present. If you hike 1,444 miles in Ohio, you're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to meet a lot of nice people, just like any other trail.
I imagine you're going to get a lot of questions too.
Yes, and I knew that whether I liked it or not, I was going to be an unofficial ambassador for the Buckeye Trail, because people were going to see this fellow walking with a backpack on and not know what he was doing. So I had a little business card printed up with my name and the Buckeye Trail Association website address that I could hand to them if they wanted more information. I almost never get haircuts on my long distance hikes. I got 2 haircuts in 3 months because I didn't want to be this shaggy guy walking around Ohio looking unkempt. Now, on a long distance trail, that long hair and beard is kind of a status symbol. When you're on a trail like the Buckeye Trail, which isn't all wilderness, I wanted to portray the Buckeye Trail in a good light. And if
let me ask you this: when you were hiking, did you know in your mind that you were going to write a book?
No, I didn't.
Captain Blue on the Blue Blazes. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so at the time of my hike, it was in 2011, and blogging was quite popular at that time. Of course, Facebook was around then, but it wasn't quite as popular as it is today, or the other social media sites. So I did a daily blog. I just got a free blog site, and every day I would update my blog. I would write about 1 page of information and upload photos, and people could follow along on my journey through my daily blog posting. At the end of my hike, I had 88 blog entries. A few years later, a friend of mine who just retired from being a college professor stumbled upon my blog, and at the same time was starting to hike the Buckeye Trail, said, "Hey, you have the makings of a book here. I've always wanted to help write a book." And it's my great friend, Karen Tagalong Power, who I've done a lot of hiking with. And she said, "You have some good stuff here. You've got a lot of grammar errors. You left your readers hanging. You don't have a plot. You don't have a theme. You don't have a backstory." And she took those 88 days worth of material and was my ghostwriter and weaved it in, to a book that is worth reading and is more than a hiker journal. Because a lot of hiker journals are, or a lot of hiker books are, hey, I woke up in the morning, had oatmeal, put my boots on, and hiked 20 miles.
Yeah.
This was a lot more than that. So
I would say it's a staple for the Buckeye Trail. I mean, if you want to hike the Buckeye Trail, you guys need to read that book.
It's not really a how-to book. It's what I encountered on mine. So, and the people that I encountered, and these strangers that opened their house to me, people that had never met me before, reached out to me in advance and said, "Hey, when you come to my town, let me stay at my house. I'll pick you up off the trail, and you can do laundry, get a shower, and I'll make dinner for you and put you on the trail the next day." So, I like to say that hospitality is not a Southern term. Northern hospitality is alive and well.
Hey, us Midwesterners, hey, we know how to treat people, right? Maybe.
Absolutely, yes. And
So listen, I've got a question. So I'm fascinated about your hiking because you've done a lot of hiking, but I'm also equally fascinated with your volunteering and your trail maintaining and what you do to give back. Because I encourage everybody, I want everybody to give back. So before we move to your volunteering, do you have a favorite trail? Do you have a favorite experience? If somebody asks you, you probably get asked this a lot. What's your favorite trail? What's your favorite experience? Or does it all give you something a little bit different?
but I get asked that a lot, like, what's your favorite trail? And my answer is the one that I'm on at the time. If I'm out
Right.
there hiking, that's my favorite one right now. And trails have different personalities, and I guess I have different personalities too. So it depends on kind of what mood I'm in and what kind of trail suits it. But I would have to say the Appalachian Trail because I've hiked so much on
I don't know. You might step some toe on there for the sixth one. You never know. It might happen.
it.
So I don't know, probably about 6 months ago, maybe longer than that, I started following you on Facebook. And I think what you said is true at the beginning. You said you're not doing, you're not hiking for the Instagram, but I love when you post that you're out volunteering and doing trail maintenance work on your Facebook. And most recently, you have been out on the Florida Trail and doing trail maintenance and leading people on the Florida Trail. So, talk to us about your volunteering and kind of how that started. And I know you're huge, huge. I can't even give you all the accolades for what you've done for the Buckeye Trail Association. So, how did you start weaving that in with your hiking? Because I think a lot of times people are no, I'm just hiking and I'll just pay the organization dues or not pay the organization dues, and don't understand the value of giving back, because I have found that giving back almost is more rewarding at certain times than hiking.
It absolutely is. I mean, I found that true with trail maintenance. It is there is a type of reward that you get from it that you can't just get by being a trail user. Uh, on my Buckeye Trail hike in 2011, before I even finished it in those 88 days, because people were reading my blog, two things happened. One, I was nominated to be on the board of trustees for the Buckeye Trail Association while I'm still hiking. And two,
Oh, while you were still hiking?
while I was still hiking, yes.
Well, you were an ambassador at that point, right?
I was an ambassador at the time, and they were looking for someone. Actually, this wonderful lady from Cleveland resigned to make a spot for me on the board. And then another thing, I became the section supervisor of a section of the Buckeye Trail before I got done with my hike. And the person that had it a while. So that's what got me started into trail maintenance and the world of organized trail maintenance. And since then, I've become very involved with Kentucky State Parks. I lead 2 learn and do trail maintenance outings there. I've led AmeriCorps crews in the Kentucky State Park system. The group of the NCCCs, they're aged between age 18 and 25. They come to a park for a month, and they're working on the trails. And Kentucky Parks has enlisted me to be like their trail crew leader. Do a lot of volunteering, clearing down trees in the state parks in Ohio where I'm needed, local parks, helping get a 15-mile trail built in the Dayton area, just my little piece of it, helping out, getting the people in Dayton Hikers to help out. But when you hike a lot, you see a lot of bad trail. And I tell hikers when they come to my learn and do workshops, like, you know more about trail maintenance than you say. You come in here and say, I've never done trail maintenance. I don't know anything about it. But you show them a picture of a water bar. You show them a picture of a check dam or cribbing, and they're like, oh, yeah, I've seen that. You show them a picture of a bad trail. They're like, oh, yeah, I've walked around that kind of stuff. You show them a picture of a rehabilitated trail. They're like, yeah, that's the stuff I like hiking on. And when you take a group of volunteers with like zero experience and you go out in the woods for a long weekend and you're moving dirt, you're moving rock, you've got hand tools, you're taking a section of trail that's badly eroded, and you're rehabilitating it, and you're taking it from this experience that a hiker tries to avoid because they don't want to walk in a trench, and you make it into an experience that's pleasing to the eye, and it's safer, more enjoyable for the trail user. And it's a wonderful thing. And these volunteers at the end of the day, at the end of the weekend, they're so proud of themselves because they didn't realize they could do this. And they didn't realize how hard it can be to do this and how much they enjoyed that hard work. So, and I love going back to seeing my projects on the trail, see how they're holding up, see if they need any work, make sure they are holding up. And I love getting people introduced to that. And specifically in these learn and do trail maintenance things. And your typical trail outing is called like a work party. And it's, a lot of times it's all work and no play. I like to, with the Kentucky park systems, they value trail workers. We like to play. So we're in a state park, we work during the day and we play at night. We'll go tomahawk throwing. We'll go visiting a cave at Carter Cave State Park. We'll go play miniature golf. We'll go do some fun things. It's important that people enjoy trail maintenance or they won't come back. And that's the kind of the focus that I like to put on it.
I love that. And I've had people ask me, well, how do I get started? What do I do? And I'm like, go to your local park. I guarantee you, if you say you want to go and pick up garbage, they'll let you. Or, start doing that stuff on your own and, get with a meetup group. There's all kinds of groups going out hiking. I mean, there's a wonderful thing called Google where you could just type in like, here I'm at Charlotte hiker meetup groups, Charlotte cleanups, those kind of things. And, like you said, you're not going to go wrong with giving back.
You won't. Yes. And most hikers kind of take from the trail system and they think it's somebody else's job to maintain that trail and to do it. And that's when I think, a hiker, as they progress from like a beginner to an intermediate to an advanced, when I see people going on to care about the trails, to take an interest in the trails and give back to their local trail. I mean, whether it's a state park or a city park or whatever, when you start seeing them giving back, that they're doing what they should be doing. They're not just taking. And I see too many people just take, and maybe they're too busy and don't have time. You ought to hear the excuses I get from people when they can't do trail maintenance outings. But it's always next time. But luckily, there's enough people that say this time to make it work.
Yeah. And we need young people to come out and start doing trail maintenance. I heard a statistic somewhere that the average trail maintainer on the Appalachian Trail is 63.
I believe it.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah, young people, we need to think about this. Like, 63
who's going to be there in
versus-
20 years? Who's going to be there in 30 years?
Yeah, we need to, mentors, and we need mentees, and all those wonderful things that make everything work. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done. I mean, I can't even read everything you've done. It's so much. It's amazing. It's amazing. And you also have the Dayton Hikers group. So
Yes.
with over 7,000 people in Dayton, Ohio, where I grew up, where there is no hiking. So
number one,
well, I should say no mountains. I should say no mountains. Okay, I take
No
that back.
mountains.
Don't get mad at me, Dayton people. Okay, don't get mad. No.
Well, that is just.
And I know the Metro Park system is phenomenal. And I know there's a lot of things going on, so I don't want any Daytonians getting mad at me when I say that. But 7,000 people.
So yes, number one, we would invite you on your next visit back to your hometown of Dayton. We'd love to take you on a hike. And
Yes.
Dayton. Most people don't realize it, but we are blessed with many different types of trails. Of course, we have our Five Rivers Metro Parks, which is our Montgomery County Park District, but we also have Miami County Park District and Greene County Parks and Trails. So we have wonderful county park districts. We have a lot of state parks: Cedar Creek State Park, John Bryan State Park, Sycamore State Park. We got state nature preserves, Clifton Gorge State Nature Preserve. We have a lot of local parks in the Dayton area, city parks that are hiker destinations. Most city suburban parks are playgrounds and walking tracks. We have hiker destination parks in Dayton, and we have the private preserves like Glen Helen Nature Preserve or Bruckner Nature Preserve. So we have a lot of parks. We have a lot of trails. We have a lot of people in Dayton who like to hike. We have a lot of people in Dayton who volunteer as a hike leader. And that's what makes the Dayton Hikers Group wonderful. I founded it in 2009. It far exceeded my expectations. We're a meetup group. You can find us online at DaytonHikers.org. And if anybody's ever in the area, they're welcome to come hike with us. And I thought we would just be a hiking group, but we are a group of friends. People meet each other. There's a lot of social connections that are made. A lot of people find a purpose in life through hiking. They don't go to the gym. Certainly during the last 2 years with the pandemic, outside was a safe place to be. We stayed hiking during all of that. And a lot of people are very thankful to have an active hiking club in Dayton, Ohio.
And I will put my foot in my mouth for say there was no hiking in Dayton. Okay. And go ahead.
I was going to say, you're very typical, Jester, of people that grew up in Dayton and moved away. And they're like, what? There's all these, what? In Dayton, and that's just natural surface hiking trails I'm talking about. We have 350 miles of paved trails. It's the largest paved trail network in the nation, headquartered in Dayton, Ohio. So,
wow.
Yeah, so paved trails being what some people would call bike trails or multi-purpose trails. So.
And I know Joan Young just went through there. She's out hiking the North Country Trail again. So I remember she is crazy.
Yeah, I set her up with a friend of mine in Minster and some friends in Dayton where she parked her trailer and did her day hikes. So we loved having her in town.
Awesome. Another, incredible lady out there. She's out there getting it done. She put her mind to it. She's going to do it. So listen, Andy, we've got your hiking we could spend hours. We're never going to end up talking about all of it. What you do with volunteering, what you do with trail maintenance, your philosophy, all that. And now let's move to your company, the Outdoor Adventure Connection. Tell us about your company. When did you start that? And what do you guys do?
Yeah. So, we're about 10 years old now, and in my retirement or semi-retirement, I wanted to stay productive, and I formed a company called Outdoor Adventure Connection, and I wasn't sure what it was going to be or what we were going to do. But we lead guided backpacking trips, and it was a way for me to turn my passion of hiking and to introduce people and to show them the proper techniques for backpacking. So one of our most popular events is a one-night trip in a park somewhere where they show up at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and they're done at 10 o'clock on a Sunday. And they spend the night in the woods, and we go over 6 or 7 different workshops on topics that backpackers ought to know, anywhere from backcountry sanitation to leave no trace to fire building, backpacking stoves, etc., how to hang your food in a tree. And it gives people an opportunity to start to backpack. A lot of them go on to take their own backpacking trip, or they go on to take one of my Appalachian Trail trips with me. But it was very important for me to teach people to share my passion with backpacking. And I get involved with trail maintenance outings with Outdoor Adventure Connection and a few other fun things that I get to do.
I know. I'm reading here, the Learn and Do, that's actually part of your company, correct?
It is. It's a public-private partnership with Kentucky Parks. When you go to most park districts, they don't have the staff to put on the types of programs that it takes to do trail maintenance. And I have a good relationship with the folks at Carter Cave State Resort Park in Kentucky. And I handle the registration. I get the volunteers. I help with the tools. I help select the projects. I run the trail crew when we're down there. The park people come and help out. They tell us the priority areas. They provide us with the materials. They clear the way for us, and they get involved too. And it's just a way where they can not have to dedicate a bunch of resources to a bunch of volunteers that come to a park. So it works great. We get a lot of work done, and we have a lot of fun. And with Outdoor Adventure Connection, there's a quote that I like to say that, the honorable adventurer, once you achieve, you have a duty to inspire. And that's what I believe. You have all these people who are achieving. You now have a duty to inspire because somebody inspired you once upon a time. And that's what I do with these overnight backpacking workshops. I do a 5-day, 4-night trip on the Appalachian Trail in the Roan Highlands. There's a lot of people that want to start hiking the Appalachian Trail and don't know how to get started. And it's the same kind of format. I teach them the things they need to know while they're out there. All of my trips are structured with an educational component. And that way people are ready. They've got the skills and knowledge and the experience to take that next step to go on to do whatever it is they want to do when it comes to backpacking or the outdoor world.
That's probably one of the greatest things I've ever heard. Once you achieve, you have the duty to inspire.
Yes.
I mean, there is, wow.
That's
Wow,
the
wow.
honorable adventurer. So that is my challenge to all those adventurers out there. Now that you've achieved, please inspire.
I love it. I love it. So, Andy, I mean, seriously, I mean, you have done so much. What's on the docket for 2022?
Well, I have about 7 different events that I'm going to do with Outdoor Adventure Connection. I don't want to do much more than that. I consider myself a micro business. I'm not trying to make a living from it, but I do want to be active with that. I've got the Pinhoti Trail in Alabama and Georgia in my sights for April. And not quite sure what I'm going to do this summer, but maybe when the fall comes around, I'll start mopping up some sections of the Eastern Continental Trail that I haven't done yet.
Interesting. So that's interesting because you've done Florida, the Florida Trail, that's done. So the Eastern Continental, what are you missing? Have you done Benton MacKaye?
No, I'll need the Pinhoti and the Benton MacKaye section over to Springer in the Georgia area. I would need to kind of go down to the Florida Keys and do that long road walk up to the start of the Florida Trail. And then there's the 190-mile Alabama road walk. And then, of course, there would be the International Appalachian Trail north of Maine and north of Katahdin.
So I see a check mark on that in the future. He's smiling, everybody, so I think it's going to happen.
Well, I don't like to make grand announcements because sometimes they don't
Well,
happen.
sometimes stuff doesn't happen. But, I mean,
Right.
if everything aligned, it could possibly happen. So, well, I hope when you go down to the Pinhoti that you visit Kim and Nathan with the Pinhoti Outdoor Center, wonderful people. And I know when you get down there to Flag Mountain, you got to see Nimblewheel, right?
I'm hoping to. And, I met Nimblewheel Nomad back in 2000 when he was a cook dishwasher at the Hike Inn, the Len Foote Hike Inn in northern
Wow.
Georgia. Yes. And so I've known of him since then. So
Incredible. Well, fingers crossed that you get to meet Nimblewheel and you have a successful hike there on the Pinhoti Trail. And Andy, once again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your experience. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with? I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, I like to end, when I give a lot of programs and stuff, I like to end with a quote. And, my quote is, does the person make the journey or does the journey make the person? And I'm a firm believer in both of those, that you make the journey and that the journey makes you. And it's awesome that you had me on. Thank you very much, Jester. It's been a pleasure to be your guest.
All right. Appreciate it, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andy, for sharing with all of us your passion for hiking, giving back, and connecting with community. I can think of no better way to sign off than to emphasize what Andy shared with us about the honorable adventurer, and that is, once you achieve, you have the duty to inspire. As always, you can go to hikingradionetwork.com and click on the Jester Section Hiker Show to find all of today's show notes, pictures, and links mentioned in this episode. If you find value in what we do here at the network and want to give back to help in the production of our shows, you could always leave a donation by clicking on any one of the donate buttons found on our website. And please be sure to leave us a note on why you enjoy our shows. Thanks for listening. Be safe out there and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
When you download the Baker's app, you have easy access to savings every day. Get the most out of weekly sales and receive personalized coupons to save on your favorite items, all while earning 1 fuel point for every $1 spent. Baker's makes it easy to save while you shop, whether it's in-store or online, so you get the most value out of every trip, every time. Download the Baker's app now to save big on your next purchase. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Must have a digital account to redeem offers. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.